According to the National Center for Drug Abuse, over 165 million Americans ages 12 and up are currently abusing drugs or alcohol. Of those 165 million Americans, there is a mom, dad, sister, brother, wife, husband, son, daughter, or grandparent praying and pleading that they would stop. Addiction is a subject most people don't like to talk about and is kept behind closed doors. But the Finding Hope podcast will bring light to the subject and give families that are living in shame, guilt, hopelessness, fear, worry, and anger tools and education to find strength, peace, happiness, joy, and hope. Hello, I'm Amy LaRue, Finding Hope Coordinator for Hope is Alive Ministries and your host for this Finding Hope podcast. At Hope is Alive, our mission is to radically change the lives of drug addicts, alcoholics, and those who love them. We do this through our intentional next-level sober living homes and faith-based support groups for the loved ones of addicts called Finding Hope.
Thank you for joining us today. We just wrapped up our first Finding Hope retreat for the year. What an amazing weekend of being reminded that our tears are not lost, but yet God sees each one and each one tells a story. We have only 2 more opportunities for you to join us at one of our Finding Hope retreats. So be sure to sign up today. We will be in Colorado Springs, Colorado, and Lake Junaluska, North Carolina. We can't wait to have you there. You can learn more and register at fhretreat.com. We also have the opportunity for 2 Hope After Loss Moms Retreats, and you can learn more about those at halretreat.com, halretreat.com. And today I have Darcie. How are you doing today, Darcie?
I'm doing good.
Good.
Yeah.
Did you enjoy the retreat?
Yes, it's so good. I love them. I love being around our people, meeting new people as well, and just, it's a special time.
It is. It is just that connection, that special connection you build. And you just see it every time we're there. They're coming in weighed down.
Yes.
But leaving lifted.
Yes. So by Sunday, we were having this discussion the other day. During Sunday worship, you can just see the walls are down. They're worshiping more freely, and just the presence of the Lord fills the room because they finally let down walls that they probably have never let down before.
Yeah, absolutely. Because they're in that safe place with people. So I hope more of you guys will join us at our other 2 retreats. Yes. But today we're going to just get right to it because it might be a little bit longer, but we want to get it's an important topic.
Yes.
So the topic we're going to talk about now is sober. Now what? So many times we've been praying and pleading and wanting them to get sober.
Yeah.
They get sober, and now we're like, what do we do with this? Right? Because we've been so used to doesn't feel comfortable, but we're so used to that chaos, and they're sober, and it's like, okay, what do I do with this? I will never forget when I dropped my husband off at his rehab, and they looked at me and said, how many rehabs has he been to? And I said, how many? I thought you were going to fix him. I thought this was a one and done deal.
Yeah.
And so there I started to learn. They had an amazing family weekend, which I'm so grateful for because we did get to talk about this.
Yeah.
Okay, they're sober. So now what? What is our role as family members?
Right.
And what can we learn more about them and their journey to recovery.
Yeah.
And so I think the first thing we have to remember, Darcie, is this is a brain disease.
Correct.
And we had a few podcasts back. So if you haven't listened to that one with Courtney, I would encourage you to listen to it. Or maybe you have. Go back and listen to it
really good.
again.
Yeah.
It really talks about how addiction in the brain and how it takes a hold of the brain, and it tells our loved ones, you need this to survive, to get through this next hour, to get through this day, to get through whatever it might be. And so once they've gone to treatment or they're working their sobriety, they're having to fight that every day.
Yeah.
Whether it's day 1 or day 100. It's something that they're working on, that rewiring of their brain that we've talked about before.
Right.
So one thing I thought was I learned at the family weekend, and I think I look like deer in the headlights when they said this, is they might be in this fog per se for 6 to 18 months. I said 18 months. I thought that he got sober. Like, this is just, so if you're listening and maybe you're in that same boat, like I thought once they got sober, everything was better. Right. You know, it is better. I mean, you know, it is, you know, things are going more smooth, but there's still a lot that our loved ones have to undig and work through and create their own plan and create the recovery plan and work through.
Right.
And so something else I hear people say sometimes is, but they're still acting like they're 13 or 14. Why is that?
Yeah. Because they revert back, or they're stuck at that age when they first started using substances because their brain stopped growing and maturing. And so they may be a 30-year-old man or woman, but if they started their substance abuse at 13, 14 years old, they're going to revert back to that same type of behavior, reactions, and everything like that, because they're stuck there and they have to allow. That's why that time period of healing their brain has to happen.
Yeah, and that's why I think it's so important for people to get into sober living homes, like our Hope is Alive homes. Like, it gives that opportunity in a safe place for them to help close that gap with their brain and the healing and all of that. Yeah. Because, I mean, I hear that and I was like, what? Like, because my husband didn't start really using till his 30s, you know? And so I never really experienced that, but you do hear it. Like, it's like they're in high school again, you know? And it's like, well, because that's where their brain stops. But there is good news. There is hope, because it can work as they're in their sobriety, work in recovery. Help that. Yeah. So I think one thing sometimes we're afraid of is, while they're in their addiction, we're walking on eggshells.
100%.
But when they're fresh in sobriety, what are we still doing?
Still walking on eggshells.
Still walking on eggshells, right? Because I remember thinking, well, I don't want to trigger him to relapse. Right. Because then I started learning all these things. Oh, like, there's a thing called relapse. There's this and that. And so I'm like, I still working on eggshells. I'm scared to ask him questions, like all of that. And so it's like, how do we communicate when they're well, you know? And one thing, I did some research asking, from our family weekend, but asking those that have been on staff and in recovery for a while. And I think one thing is to sit down and, like, we were talking about this at the healing center that Hope is Live has, and they had a family weekend, is have those hard conversations while they're sober right now. Yes. Yeah. And I think one of the first questions is, how can I support you? Right. How can I support you in your recovery? Yeah. And they might come back with a boundary. Yes. And we'll be like, well, that's not fair. No. Right. But we have to respect their boundaries. Yeah. Because they have, if they're coming from a sober living or even from a treatment center facility, they're coming out with a plan to help them be the most successful, in their recovery. And so asking them how to support them. And I think one thing sometimes we forget is God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth. Yes, right? And so it's taking that and listening to them and not just giving them free advice that they don't need.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. That's so good.
What else can we ask them?
Well, what does your recovery plan look like? Because I think we want to tell them what it should look like, but we need to allow them the time to tell us, hey, what does your recovery plan?
Well, we haven't been in their shoes, Darcie.
Correct. Yeah.
Like, I can't tell them what their recovery plan needs to be if I haven't been in their shoes.
Yes.
Just absolutely. Like they can't tell us what our recovery plan needs to look like because they haven't been in our shoes.
Yeah. And just ask them, what does it look like? And just trust that they have the people around them to have a solid recovery plan.
Yeah. One thing, another question is, like, how can I check in with you? Right. Yeah. And after my husband got out of treatment, one thing we started doing after his counselor actually wanted him to have some sobriety before we started marriage counseling because of the
That's
brain.
good.
And so one thing that she had us start to do was weekly check-ins. And so I always knew, and I still tell people this, like I always knew on Saturday night after the kids were in bed, it'd be our weekly check-in where he could share with me what he wanted to about his recovery and I could share with him about my recovery. And it was just a good time because I knew every week that's when we're going to do it.
Yeah.
You know, and sometimes I would write questions down throughout the week that I wanted to ask him at that time. Not saying that we couldn't have a serious conversation before then, but I remember asking him, okay, because at that time I was doing Finding Hope and Al-Anon. And I was like, is this how your step 3 is? Like just having those open conversations. This is what I'm doing on step 3. Is this how it is for you? And AA. And so, but asking them and having a plan for check-ins, like, but also listening to them, like even if they say, if they're checking in with you and they're struggling, that we aren't reactive in that.
Yeah.
We have to be careful
good.
about not being reactive in those check-ins. Because that's when that wall is going to start to go up between the both of you.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
But it's okay for us as loved ones to share how we're feeling too.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, they're just as afraid of relapse as we are afraid of a relapse, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, sharing that with them.
Yeah.
You know, and I think another question is if I feel like they're slipping, asking them, how do you want to approach? And so asking them all these questions when they're, you know, out of, you know, out of a treatment facility and having those, like maybe even need to do it with their counselor at their treatment on this family weekend so that you're having these deep conversations there through that. So, but making sure we're actually listening. And if you need to clarify, ask a clarifying question. That's okay.
Yeah.
Like, so what does that mean? You might ask that. So what does that mean? Because we don't know it all. And they have just learned so much.
And we don't want them to feel like we're attacking them.
Yeah.
And so, like, it's important to ask those questions, like, how do you want me? So they don't feel like we're attacking them. Because I think, like you said, that can build that wall up between us if they feel like you're coming at them or you're, like, just hovering over them or you have all these questions. But, like, how do they want you to approach the situation?
And that's good because right now what that is building trust again.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And we say, like, you lose trust in that backup full, you gain it back. And it's for both sides.
Oh, yeah.
You know, because we're great investigators as loved ones, you know, looking through all the things, looking at their phones, looking under their beds, all the things, looking in their cars, that they are building trust back with us too. So it's going both ways of that.
Yeah.
But what's one thing we don't do because they're sober? We don't loosen up our boundaries,
do
we?
No. Oh, absolutely not.
Like,
no,
just
that boundaries stay in place.
Yeah, I hear that sometimes. Well, they have this much sobriety. They have 3 months sober. No, your boundaries, you still have boundaries no matter what, you know? And they still have boundaries too.
Yes.
One thing I hear is like, well, they're sober. I'm going to give them a car. And majority of the time, what I've seen, that's on you to decide if that's what you want to do.
Yeah.
You just can't be resentful if something happens when they have the car.
Yeah.
Is they leave their sober living. They don't have that accountability.
Yeah.
And then here we go again.
Yeah.
You know, even if that wasn't their plan to go get, you know, relapse after leaving, but they had that, feel like they had that freedom of having a car now, I can leave.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so our boundaries stay in place.
Yes.
And communicating that with our loved ones. And one thing I did, I'm not sure if you did, is I communicate not just my boundaries. Like, we actually talked about boundaries with that counselor at my husband's treatment.
Yeah.
Like, but we also I communicated my triggers.
Yes.
Like, this is something that triggers me.
Yeah.
You know, one thing I've talked about is if my husband's truck is home from work early before I get there, that would always trigger me because when he was in his addiction, he would always be home before me. Mm-hmm. He would already be passed out either in his chair or on, and like, so it would trigger me. So to the point now, like, using those I feel statements, I feel scared, I feel nervous or anxious.
Yeah. When
you get home before me and I see your car in the driveway, will you please let me know if you're coming home early from work?
Yes. Mine was because he would always stop at the gas station on the way home.
Yeah.
And so to get gas, and so he made sure to tell, like, when he got sober, hey, I'm stopping by the gas station to put gas in my car, to tell me, so I didn't like question like what he was doing or anything like that.
Yeah, we have to remember they don't know our triggers.
Right.
And so, like, yeah, I mean, I could have not said anything. You could have not said anything. Yeah, people go by the gas station to get a Coke or get gas, right?
Yes,
Yes. But being able to communicate that with them.
Yes.
And not be scared to communicate that with them because they don't know.
Right.
Like, we don't know what their triggers are. And maybe it's
Right.
asking even them, like, what are some triggers? That goes back to those questions. How
Yeah.
can I support you?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Just having that open communication is so important.
Yeah. And so I think it is like communicating our boundaries and triggers and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
One question I get a lot is, Amy, what's the difference between sobriety versus recovery?
Yeah.
And a couple of years ago, I had Amanda on my podcast, and I asked her, she's in recovery.
Yeah.
So I just asked her. And so go way back, and you can find that podcast of her story and me asking that. But when I think about that, they're two different things.
Oh, absolutely.
So what is sobriety?
Sobriety is when a person with an addiction is no longer using, and they are varying interpretations of sobriety, but the most common interpretation is complete and total abstinence from the substances.
So not using, in a sense.
So not using, not doing anything mind altering or anything like that.
And to me, I think about it as white knuckling sometimes, right? Yeah. Like, I'm not using today. I'm not using this, maybe this hour. Like, it's that white knuckle. But when we think about recovery, and that's for us too on this side, right? Like, we can white knuckle this, or we can be in our own recovery too.
Yeah.
And so recovery refers to the process of healing from the addiction. Recovery is striving for both mental and physical health to achieve a state of wellness. So it's working a program in a sense,
absolutely.
right? They are going to meetings. They are working with a sponsor. They're working with maybe their sober living, whoever's in there. Maybe they're with a counselor. They've worked the steps or working the steps. They're checking in. All those things are part of recovery. And that is not so much white knuckling it because you have that community and the support, just like for us, having that community and support, which I hear it sometimes like, I don't need to come to Finding Hope anymore. I don't need Finding Hope because they're doing well. They found sobriety, which I'm excited for.
Right.
But we need it still too. Because of these triggers we talk about, we need that. We need a safe place to share. I've talked about my husband's relapse after 5 years. I was still connected to Finding Hope. Yeah. And this was before I was even on staff. So I was still going to these meetings and had a meeting that I got to openly share about this relapse in a safe place.
Right.
And so I think it's so important that Sober Now What? You're still doing you.
Yes.
You're still we just did a podcast about your wellness take and self-care. You're still doing that. You still have your boundaries. You're still going to your meetings. You're still connecting. You're still going to the retreats. All these things. And it's the same for them, right? It's the same on both sides.
Yeah. I tell people all the time, like when I'm talking to them, I will always be in recovery, like working a recovery program with my kids and everything, no matter what my loved ones are doing, because I think that's so important to stay working in recovery, no matter what they're doing or not doing. Yeah.
Well, I mentioned the word relapse.
Yes.
And so we do know that. And I said, at the place where my husband went, and I was like, well, how many times? What's and I didn't know what it was. And you don't, and it's okay. Like you hear, but like, I think again, it's one of those buzzwords that's thrown out around, codependency, all these things. But a relapse, one thing we have to remember is a relapse can happen. I'm not going to say it can't.
Right.
But it doesn't always mean it will. And it doesn't mean the end.
Correct.
Right? Yeah. Like, I really feel like my husband's relapse, he needed that relapse because he had obviously easily stopped really working a program. And at that relapse, he got connected to a smaller group.
Oh, yeah.
And now, he goes to meetings with a small group and has more accountability with that small group than he did just going to a meeting here and there.
Yeah.
And so it made him actually grow more.
Yeah.
and made him realize, oh, I do need to reach out to someone when I'm struggling.
Yes.
You know? And
Yes.
so it made him look at that as well.
Yeah.
And so we just have to remember, like, think through, if a relapse were to happen, you should have a boundary ready.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, I had my boundary ready for that
Yes.
relapse. I know you've had boundaries.
Yep.
And it's scary because, like, my husband's was kind of like a gray area relapse in a sense.
But not for you.
Not for
Yeah.
me. Correct. Yeah. And he admitted, like, this is a relapse. He
Mm-hmm.
said those words, and he wasn't fully drunk. And, but I still had to stay with my boundaries.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I can't just, it was just a one-time
Right.
thing. Like, it was for him. But what if I would have not?
Yeah.
What if I would have not followed through? May have not been just a one-time thing.
Yeah.
Might have been like, okay, Amy said this, but she didn't follow through. So
Yep.
it's okay if I drink again.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah. Because if you let that boundary down one time, it gives them room to like try again.
Yeah.
And then try again. And then try
Yep.
again. Not that they will, but
And then
it
you
can.
feel caught. Like, what am I
Yes.
supposed to
Yeah.
do? I don't know what to do now. Like, my boundaries are, and if you've been there and you're maybe there right now, it's okay. Just keep that boundary. Like,
Yeah.
if that happens, feel like you've been on that, like, maybe you've had that loose boundary, the boundary with a hole. It's okay to put it up.
Yeah.
And they're not going to like it. We talk about that
Right.
all the time.
Yeah. And
but
that's okay.
keep that boundary.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
And so, again, hopefully you had that conversation prior that we were talking about.
Yeah.
What do you want me to do if I suspect and all of that? So that's how you can approach them
Yes.
in that relapse. When I approached my husband, he was not in a state of full drunkenness.
Right.
He was in a state of being able to have a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
If he was in full drunkenness, I probably would have just left the
Mm-hmm.
house. And then have that conversation when he was sober-minded.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good.
And sometimes we can even say, and this is what Amanda told us, like, she used to help lead Finding Hope. I saw or noticed
Yes.
XYZ,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
leads me to believe
Right.
XYZ. It's
Yeah.
not pointing that finger. You did this. Well, this is what I've noticed. This is what I saw, which leads me to believe
Yeah.
this. Is that true? And, deep down, if they lie, if you feel in your heart, like, you've got to follow through with, remember, it's keeping us safe.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And remembering to use those
I feel statements.
Yep.
Yeah.
What was those
Yeah.
I feel statements,
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, Darcie, we already kind of talked about this. They're in sobriety. And I think the biggest thing is to remember our recovery doesn't stop.
Correct.
And so I want us to go, and I asked Finding Hope members. And so we're going to just read some quotes to them. And about helpful tips from those that have been on this journey for a while.
Yeah.
Maybe their loved ones have found recovery. Maybe they haven't.
Right.
And just like their tips that they have, most of them all had at one point found recovery, or else I probably wouldn't have asked them about that for this lesson. And so let's just kind of go through a couple of these with everybody. So do you want to share one with us?
Yeah, I'll do the first one. A tool I have used when my suspicions turn into obsessive worry.
Ooh, obsessive worry.
Yeah, is my God box, which we talk about that.
Yes.
I write my paper request or you write your paper request or your concern on a slip of paper, date it, and put it in the box. And you put it in the box. You cannot take it out and take it, and it's basically like giving it to God and not taking it out and picking it back up.
Give your concerns to him. Give those prayer requests to him. Even if you feel like you took it back, write it down again.
Yes.
And keep putting it in the box till you fully surrender it.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
This wasn't me that put it, but this is somebody else. So I just want people to know you're not alone. I had a fairy tale idea that 90-day rehab was going to be the end of their addiction, but I was wrong. I still needed to have intact boundaries.
Yes.
So that was just something similar to my. What about you?
Yeah.
One more.
Okay. Let's see. I'll go down a little bit. I wish I had known how to let go and let God. I tried to handle, control, and demand things from my children, even in their recovery.
Someone said this process, it takes time. They're dealing with a lot and things won't be easy or quick.
Yeah.
We don't have to feel bad for not trusting them yet, because we get that. I don't trust them. It's like, it's okay. You're building it back, right?
Yes.
Just because they got sober. This is what I really like. To encourage, but not micromanage.
That's so good.
To love, but not be blind. And to not walk on eggshells.
Yeah, that's good.
Will you read that last one to us?
Yes. I needed to heal from the addiction just as much as my alcoholic needed to get sober. It affects more than just the alcoholic. And while he's working on him, I waited until he was sober to begin on working on myself. I wish I had begun the work long before.
So good.
Did you write this for me?
I didn't. Did you write it?
It sounds a lot like me because I waited so long. But yeah, and that's what we hear a lot of time too. I wish I would have known about these groups and recovery a long time ago, because while the member keeps saying while he was still in active addiction, I had let it paralyze me for way too long. We are celebrating his sobriety, but no, it's not a given. If there ever is a relapse, I must remember that it's not about me and continue to do what I can to support him, but also make sure to take care of myself first.
I like that. It's not about me. And we're going to end with this. Just like when they're in active addiction, Darcie, even in recovery, we must let go and let God.
Yeah.
We didn't have that much power to make them sober.
Right.
And we don't have the power to keep them sober.
That is so good.
So our challenge for this week is, what is your recovery plan? What is your own recovery plan? And how will you respond if there was, maybe your loved one is in sobriety, in recovery? How will you respond to a relapse? And more importantly, continue to keep going to meetings, sharing and supporting other members in finding hope, whether your loved one is in recovery or not.
Yeah.
So thank you guys so much for joining us today. And you can learn more about Finding Hope at FindingHope.Today. But before you go, we would love for you to give us a 5-star review, share this on social media, and subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss this next hope-filled episode. Thank you, Darcie, for being with us. And remember, you are not alone. It's not your fault. There is hope.